Let's go.
Do it.
All right. So, holy moly. Okay. Molly and I are back.
Adapt, adjust.
Lesson learned. Make sure that my computer is plugged in to a power source so that it doesn't lag out and freak out when I try to reignite it. So, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Where were we, Molly?
Remember the amnesia thing I told you about?
Right? So, okay, we were on the track of, um, talking about truth telling, talking
Mhm.
about what happens when we speak our truth
Yeah.
and we're around people who just can't hear it. One of the thoughts that had popped up as you were speaking is it. This is kind of what happens, even in coaching, right?
Mhm.
Like you have to quickly assess whether the person that you're talking to is actually coachable.
Right.
And one of the ways that you know that is basically their level of rigidity, right? Like,
Mhm.
can they hear what you're saying? Can they receive feedback? And maybe, I mean, they can have a feeling about it. They can be upset
Right.
about it, but can they then like stop and think about it and go, oh, shoot, okay, I guess you were right.
Yeah.
There's this thing that I do or whatever. And I think that, we do that in friendships as well,
Yeah.
right? That we have to determine, is this friendship really, can they hear me?
Right.
Can they accept feedback? Can they, you know, and there go the
Sorry.
dog.
The mailman is here.
Right?
Yeah. I
So
think my husband's trying to corral. I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay. Part of why I actually wanted to do this live is because, one of my whole things, one of my brand things is that life is messy. It's
It
not
is.
perfect. Shit happens. And part of being a healthy human being is learning how to roll with that.
Yeah.
For us to, in some ways, and even in our society, like, can we take away some of the rigidity around how we're supposed to show up and actually just let people be who they are?
Yeah.
Sure, there's rules and there's lines. And what I really break it down to more is like, is it effective?
Right.
Like, is it effective? Does that work? Is that actually gonna move
Mhm.
somebody forward, or does that actually hold us back from being who we really are, or speaking our truth, or saying whatever, right?
Right.
So do you have any stories around like the first time you realized that somebody really was hearing you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, I've had the surface friends and, and I'm grateful for them because I've had great memories and a lot of laughter and a lot of fun moments, but the real true, um, kind of deep, authentic in terms of a friendship. I mean, I could go back to my mom. My mom is that first person, but
Mm,
no question about it. And I would even include my sisters in there too. But in terms of a friendship outside of my family, my friend that I mentioned earlier, the social worker, her name is Julie, and she's the first person who really was the friend who went deep with me in terms of like really having honest conversations, and then not only having those honest conversations, but she actually remembered them.
mm,
And like they like we, I mean we could have we had conversations. I still remember the first time when we hung out at her house, and we still have conversations about that and
yeah,
about that conversation. And I think because she heard me and she let me know that, and I never felt judged. And that friendship really was a life-changing friendship for me because it allowed me to kind of jump into some things. I started reading more, some different books, not just like mysteries and all that, but actually started reading some real deep core books.
yeah.
She turned me on to a Vietnamese monk named Thich Nhat Hanh,
Yes,
um,
yes.
and there was a book he wrote, Peace in Every Step, and it literally changed my life. And then again, I was introduced to the Four Agreements.
Right.
which
Right.
another, so those, and then because of the authenticity and of those friendships, and like she is a social worker, so she's trained in that stuff, but she is also, it's who the core of her person
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that our friendship is still, we always make a joke, and when during normal times, when my husband's working, and he works in San Francisco, so
Mm.
and her husband is a pilot, so we always will text each other and say, hey, do we have a couple of, we have to set up phone dates, and our phone dates last like 2 or 3 hours, because we get in there and we really start talking, and we start asking each other
Love it.
questions. And so that's the first time I would really say that I would say that's probably one of the most impactful
Mhm.
friendships, where someone actually saw the core of who I was,
Yeah.
and then told me. It wasn't just like, oh, you're funny, you're this, or it was like she saw the core of who I am. And so
Love that.
yeah, so I think that's, looking back, I mean, I'm so grateful. We're still she's one of my most dear friends. And that's probably, I mean, I was in my mid 20s. So it wasn't, I had a lot of, friends, I didn't have a lot of friends, but I had,
Yeah.
good people around me growing up, in terms of friendships and, teammates on sports. But this was the first time it was actually, I got to have my creative thoughts without being judged or brushed aside, or, just
Isn't
kind of
it
dismissed.
amazing? Yeah,
Yeah.
how one person can
Yeah.
give us permission to
Yeah.
be ourselves. Like I've had sprinklings of that through my life. I have had people, and kind of like you, where I thought I was able to be real with them, and then
Yeah.
somehow I got thrown back in my face, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. But I would really say my husband is probably truly and honestly the first person who has really seen all of the different layers of me,
Yeah.
and still loves me and still reflects back to me what he sees.
Yeah.
And he's able to have those hard conversations with me, and
Mhm.
like, he's strong enough to be my man, in the sense that he's strong enough to confront me about stuff,
Yeah.
and know that I may have an emotional reaction, but that I'm coachable, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'll step back and look at it and go,
Yeah.
oh shit, you know what, he's right. But
Yeah.
that takes strength, that takes
Mhm.
courage.
Mhm.
And what's amazing to me, Molly, is that that's who you are. Like, you just named that earlier, right? You named the fact that one of the things that you do in friendships is like, I'm going to be real with you,
Yeah.
and not a lot of people take that risk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
don't. They're so worried about people pleasing, or they're so worried about what might happen if somebody gets mad or somebody
Yeah.
takes it wrong. And those of us who are truth tellers, who've hit that point in our lives where we recognize, like, we can't not do this, like,
Yeah.
that we have to.
Yeah.
Um, there is a level of bravery that we have to kind of like own
Mhm.
around that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
big. It
Yeah.
really is big.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for you that you are out there being that authentic voice for others, because what you do is give permission
Yeah.
for people to be their most powerful selves. It's why you are such a natural managing director for Polka Dot Powerhouse, is because you create that space
Yeah.
for people to just be real and get messy. And every once in a while, we're going to fucking cuss. And every once, like, you're just so real, and that allows other people to drop in and be real themselves. And you also don't have a problem saying, okay, we're done being real now, we got to get to business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Focus. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
focus. Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Focus,
yeah.
focus.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So let's end with, when do you feel like you are the most powerful?
I mean, it goes day to day, and I think it's when I'm surrounding myself with those authentic people we talked about.
Yeah, yeah,
It's when my husband and I are having great conversations. I feel like that to me is the most, like, you kind of what you shared. When I feel like I'm being heard, then
yeah,
I can go there,
yeah.
and that's where I feel like I can be my most powerful, was when, I have a tendency to stutter through my ideas and my thoughts, and you'll see sometimes like I'll put my eyes up and I'll look on 18 different directions, because I'm trying to figure out the different words and the thoughts, and I'm trying to kind of string up the thoughts to make sense. In my
Right.
head they make sense, but I have to be able to say it in a way that makes sense to other people. And it's and it's about finding, it's about being in those moments where I feel like I can truly trip over my words, so to create, and to really express verbally, vocally, emotionally how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. And I think that's when I feel most powerful. And honestly, I mean, I got to tell you, when I'm working with some of our families, when we're helping families through some difficult situations, and I can hear a family member take a deep breath, and when I hear that someone feels in that moment, and this is even with my friends and with my family, and when I hear that deep breath, it to me, it translates to I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I can provide that moment where someone just goes, and really express the whatever it is that they're going through, I get incredible amount of joy in knowing, like, it really makes my heart full, that knowing that someone doesn't feel like they have to walk through their journey alone.
Yeah.
I've done it. I have walked through my journey by myself, and
Yeah.
it is hard and it's hurtful, but it's also that moment when you have someone who puts their hand out and says, I'm here for you and I hear you. That's a game changer. And like, I'm getting goosebumps big
I
time right
know,
now.
me
It's
too.
like, I'm just like goosebumping everywhere. But I mean, really and truly, like, that to me is the greatest joy. And that's where I feel, I don't know if I don't know about power, but I just feel like there was an influence of being able to help someone put themselves out there and they felt safe to do it. And
Yeah.
that is just like, I mean, I can hang up from phone calls with friends or family. Like, yeah, I just like get pumped up and just so
Yes.
stoked about things. And
Yes.
that is just, but then it's also, I recognize it for someone who does that for me, when I'm allowed to take that deep breath, and I have a handful of friends, and that I can really truly do that with.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for them, because they're teaching me how to do that better for others as well. So
Yes.
yeah,
And what you're actually pointing out, Molly, is something that I believe so deeply to the core of my bones, which is our greatest wounding is our greatest gift, no matter what we do. It
yep,
doesn't matter if we're technically empowering women, or if we are at the grocery store, or we are working with families.
yeah,
It doesn't matter what we're doing.
yeah,
When we are able to kind of review our own life history and take a look at the places where we did not get our needs met,
yeah,
there seems to be this natural tendency to want to give other people that gift.
yeah,
And it's such a beautiful thing. And my goal is to help women complete the circle by giving that back to
yeah.
themselves, right? To
So
be able
powerful,
in
Michelle.
those moments to
Yeah,
just say, you know what I need right now? I need some reflection. I need someone to listen to me. I need someone to hold space. And even if no one is around, to recognize that that's our need, and to be able to give that to ourselves,
mm-hmm.
to slow down and say, honey, it's okay.
Yeah,
You know what? It makes perfect sense that you feel the way that you do. Like, okay, now that we know that, like, let's really feel, just all the things that you would say to a friend.
yeah.
And I really feel like when we get to that point where we can do that consistently for ourselves, there's nothing that can fucking stop us.
And
Nothing.
it's so crazy. If I can just share this really quickly,
Yeah. Yeah.
so last year, I mean, we're in Polka Dot together, and I went to the annual celebration in Boston, and during that time, they gave us a card, and we had to write a letter to ourselves.
I love
And
it.
I forgot. I remember that we did it, but I didn't remember anything that I had put in their amnesia again. And so I got the card last week, and and during that time, it's, very empowering and very uplifting, and you're around all these just, forward thinking, authentic women. So
Yeah.
you're in that air. And so I get my card last week and I read it and I just lost it. But in like a happy way, because it reminded me, like, basically what I told myself was gave myself permission to fall, because I reminded myself that I have the ability to stand back up, and
Absolutely.
I have that strength and that power, and I
Yes.
have the support surrounding me, that even when I feel like I don't, which I do feel that every so often,
Yeah.
I do. It reminded me that I have it within myself, but I've also created an environment with people that I've chosen to be around me,
Yeah.
and who are accepting to be around me. And so, like that, it was a really, so I would recommend doing something along those lines, and remind yourself, write it down, and give yourself that permission to, that you have it in yourself. You're this amazing human being. And sometimes we hear it from other people, but you have to remind yourself. And getting that card, I cried my ass off, but I also like felt so much, I just felt a sense of, I guess, power, pride within myself,
Yeah.
that's there. And I needed to be reminded of that. And what great timing during this crazy time where we have time to really sit down and look at that. And so it's just kind of, I mean, I can feel I'm like I'm sitting here I'm a little more opened up, and talking to you. I just, like, that's a huge thing. And so
Yes.
yeah, so that's, I just wanted to, we all have it, and sometimes we need other people to remind us of it, and oftentimes we can do it within ourselves. And
Absolutely.
and
Thank
we're
you
learning.
so much for that.
Yeah.
It's a great tip. It's a great exercise, whether it's writing yourself a letter or just a little brief card. It doesn't have to be a huge deal. A lot of people will get caught up in the details of it, right? Like, oh, it has to be this huge long, no, it doesn't have to be. It could just be a few words to yourself. And I love the fact that you pointed out that part of what was effective about it was that you were already in an environment of, like, all of this uplifting energy and empowerment and support. So it's a little easier to tap into that version of ourselves that can give us that reflection and that love.
Right.
And so I think that's an important piece of the puzzle, that, like, when you're sitting there in your darkness, it's going to be really freaking hard to write that letter, to yourself. But when you're in an environment where you're already feeling pretty empowered and positive, that's actually the time to remind that version of yourself that will be in that dark pit at some point, that it does get better and you are okay.
Right.
And you're amazing as you are, and you're human, and you're gonna fall, and that's all right as well. I love that so much.
What you're doing, Michelle, right now is so phenomenal. And I hope that, I think what you're doing is amazing. And I am so grateful to be a part of this. And I am excited for other women to hear and understand your mission and what your purpose is, because the influence that you have it's awesome, because you're coming from here. And so thank you for creating that space.
Absolutely.
Sharing it. It's really awesome. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And thank you for showing up fully in it. I so appreciate it. As messy as it was.
Yes.
Yes. All right. You have a wonderful day.
You too, my friend. Thank you. Thank you for this, and thank you for
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. Right back at you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.